listening to Dallas Theological Seminary's Chapel Podcast.
Let me just give a word about our speaker today. Dr. Kreider identifies his motivations as his passion for the triune God and his desire to help others respond to divine revelation in spirit and in truth. That's pretty good, isn't it, huh? Prior to coming to DTS, he directed Christian education and pastored a church over in Cedar Hill, Texas. His research interests include Jonathan Edwards, theological method, and our eschatological hope. He's married to Janice, and they have 2 children. He enjoys his pugs. I assume those are dogs. And bold coffee and good music. And I know that he's a friend, not a friend, but an ardent fan of you too, okay? Let's welcome Dr. Kreider today.
Call me Esau. I am like Esau, that's my problem. I want to be more like Esau, that's my hope. Interesting, literary characters, like people in the real world, are complex. They're not flat and simple, but multifaceted and complicated. They're a mixture of good and evil, capable of great deeds of selflessness and compassion, as well as major acts of selfishness and greed. Seldom is anyone's life, Jesus alone accepted, marked by a consistent pattern of morality or immorality. And since the biblical characters are real people, we should not be surprised at their complexity. Look, for example, at the characters in Hebrews chapter 11. With the exception of Abel and Enoch, the biblical text tells of the sordid details of Noah, a blameless man who was a drunkard. Abraham, the father of all who believe, who was a polygamist, put the lives of his wives and his first son at risk. Isaac, the patriarch who continued his father's pattern of sacrificing his wife to save his own life, as well as favoring one son over the other. Jacob, the deceiver. Moses, the murderer. Rahab, the prostitute. David, the great king who was an adulterer and murderer. And Samson. On the other hand, Esau appears at first glance to have a purely negative reputation. Writer to the Hebrews in chapter 12 says in verses 16 and 17, see that no one is sexually immoral or godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the eldest son. Afterward, as you know, when he wanted to inherit this blessing, he was rejected. He could bring about no change of mind, though he sought the blessing with tears. The story of the birthright is told in Genesis 25, 29 to 35. After an exhausting day in the field, Esau returned home, asked his brother Jacob for some of the red stew he was cooking. Jacob, the deceiver, agreed to sell him the birthright for some bread and lentil stew. Esau agreed. The author concludes, thus he despised the birthright. Further, before the 2 boys were born, the Lord had declared to Rebekah, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. In 25:23, Esau was born first, with Jacob clutching his heel. So Jacob is elevated over Esau by divine declaration. An even stronger statement is the Lord's pronouncement through the prophet Malachi. I have loved Jacob, but Esau have I hated. Malachi 1, 2-3, which Paul picks up in Romans 9 and expounds. He says, when Rebekah had conceived children by one man, our father Isaac, though they were not yet born and had done nothing either good or bad, in order that God's purpose of election might continue, not because of works, but because of him who calls, she was told, the older will serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. Romans 9, 10-13. Esau's reputation appears clear and well-deserved. His character is firmly established. Even before he was born, he was hated, rejected by God. Rejected before birth, his actions follow. He was sexually immoral, godless, and despised the blessing of God in the birthright. He was more concerned about a good meal than the blessings of the Abrahamic covenant. He valued the present over the future, the satisfaction of his basic human desires over the eschatological blessing of God. Yet, that's not the whole story. As Paul Harvey used to say, here is the rest of the story. These two brothers grew to adulthood. When Isaac, fearing his life was nearing the end, decided to pass on the blessing to his son, he called his favorite son Esau and gave him instructions to prepare a meal for him prior to receiving the blessing. Rebekah, who favored Jacob, perhaps because of the divine oracle before the sons were born, was listening, and she launched a plot to deceive her husband. Jacob recognized the danger of such a scheme. First, he pointed out his brother was hairy, while Jacob was smooth of skin. Jacob feared that if Isaac discovered the deception, he would curse Jacob instead of blessing him. When he expressed this concern to his mother, she said, "Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go." Genesis 27:13. Her plan worked. Although Isaac was skeptical, he was deceived by the taste of the food, the smell of the garments, and the touch of animal skins on Jacob's hands. No sooner had Isaac blessed Jacob than Esau returned. When he discovered the deception, Isaac trembled violently, and Esau cried out bitterly, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing. Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" It should be noted that this time, Esau was a victim of the deception of his mother and brother. In blessing Jacob, Isaac explained he had made him lord over his brother, had given him the prosperity of the earth. But he did grant Esau this blessing: "Behold, of the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, of the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, you shall serve your brother, but when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck." Genesis 27:39-40. Esau hated his brother and threatened to kill him, although he did say that he would wait until their father died. But really, who could blame him for being angry? Surely anger is appropriate in the face of such injustice. Did he really intend to murder his brother? Or was that hyperbolic rhetoric? It would not have been the first, nor the last, time that a brother killed his brother in anger, but that he was willing to wait until his father died seems to imply that, unlike Cain, Esau was in control of his anger, and might imply that his threat was rhetorical. Rebekah, on the other hand, took the threat seriously. She sent Jacob to her brother Laban to stay with him until Esau's fury subsided, until he forgot what Jacob had done, like that's going to happen. But in presenting this plan to Isaac, she used their mutual hatred of Esau's Hittite wives as the reason to send Jacob away. "I loathe my life," she said, "because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries one of the Hittite women like these, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be to me?" In chapter 27, verse 46. Surely that's hyperbole. Isaac responded as Rebekah knew he would. He sent Jacob away with a blessing. And then the narrator records Esau's response. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him to Paddan Aram to take a wife from there, and that he blessed him and he directed him, "You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and gone to Paddan Aram. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, beside the wives he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. In order to please his father and mother, Esau took a wife not from the Canaanites, but from the family of Abraham, a daughter of Abraham's firstborn son, Ishmael. 20 years later, Jacob returned to the land promised to Abraham and his descendants. On his way back, he sent this message to his brother Esau. I have sojourned with Laban, he said, and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants, female servants. I have sent to tell my Lord in order that I might find favor in your sight. Genesis 32, 4-5. The messengers returned to Isaac with ominous news. Esau is coming to meet you with 400 men. Jacob was understandably greatly afraid and distressed. But when Esau arrived, rather than any attempt to harm Jacob, Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, fell on his neck, and kissed him. And they wept. Genesis 33:4. Christian readers of this story hear the similarity to a parable Jesus taught about a son who left home after receiving his inheritance while his father is still living. After spending all of his money on wild living, he decided to return home. And Luke 15:20 says, while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Esau ran to him. Esau embraced him. Esau fell on his neck. Esau kissed him, and the two of them wept together. What a remarkable picture of reconciliation, of redemption, of forgiveness. The one who was wronged granted the gift of forgiveness to the one who deceived him. The one who was wronged took the initiative to express forgiveness to the one who took advantage of him. The one who was wronged blessed the one who stole from him. The threat of vengeance has been replaced by the power of forgiveness. Fear and dread have been replaced by transforming grace. From Esau to Jacob, like from Jesus to us. Jacob's own words express this clearly. He says to Esau, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand, for I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God. This from a man who has just seen the face of God, who had wrestled with God by the Jabbok, perhaps the night before this meeting, was able to prevail against him. And after that encounter, Jacob had declared, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. So he named the place Peniel, which means face of God. The last time these two brothers were together, the one had stolen something very valuable from the other through deception and deceit, a plot that even including pitting one parent against the other. Now, 20 years later, they experience the joy of reconciliation and redemption. Forgiveness restores what revenge and retaliation would have destroyed. Fear is gone. It is true, as John tells us, that perfect love casts out fear. I believe even imperfect love reduces fear. This relationship has now been restored. These two brothers will meet one more time as they meet to bury their father Isaac. Further evidence that the forgiveness is genuine. For Esau had sworn that he would kill his brother Jacob, but that he would wait until their father had died. Jacob, whose name in the meantime has been changed to Israel, no longer has any reason to fear his brother. I am Esau, and that's my problem. I am prone to make decisions based upon my base desires. I'm inclined to choose the imminent at the expense of the transcendent. I'm likely to respond out of anger when others take advantage of me. I want revenge, or at least justice, when I am wronged. I want to be more like Esau. I want to learn to forgive. I want to be able to grant that gift to those who hurt me, who take advantage of me, who misunderstand and malign me, who reject me, who mistreat me. I want to be a forgiving person. It is my desire that when people look at me, they believe that they have seen the face of God. Let us pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.